On the morning of February 1, 2003, people across Texas heard a strange explosion as debris began raining down around their homes. The Space Shuttle Columbia had broken apart just minutes before it was due to land. The disaster killed all 7 astronauts aboard. NASA had seen signs of damage more than 2 weeks earlier but chose not to alert the crew or take further action. Engineers had pleaded for satellite images to check the shuttle's left wing after launch foam struck it, but their requests were denied. Managers debated whether to tell the astronauts they might be in danger, and in the end they said nothing. The tragedy was not simply an accident. It was the result of years of choices that put cost, routine, and confidence ahead of safety. The story of Columbia began 3 decades earlier. On January 5, 1972, President Richard Nixon met with NASA Administrator James Fletcher for just 45 minutes. That brief meeting shaped the future of American spaceflight. NASA wanted $15 billion to develop a fully reusable space shuttle that could take off, orbit, and return to Earth like an airplane. Nixon's budget team approved only $5.15 billion, cutting 2/3 of the plan. Forced to save money, NASA abandoned its dream of a reusable system, and instead designed a partially disposable shuttle with solid rocket boosters and a massive orange external tank that would fall away after launch. NASA promised that the shuttle would make spaceflight cheap and routine, just $1,000 per pound of cargo compared to the $3 billion spent on each Apollo mission. But even in the White House, people doubted those numbers. NASA then had to choose between 2 booster types: expensive liquid-fueled engines that would be efficient to operate, or cheaper solid rocket boosters that would cost less upfront but more to maintain. They picked the cheaper option, saving $1.5 billion immediately. That decision would later contribute to both the Challenger and Columbia disasters. By 1982, development costs had ballooned to $10.6 billion, equivalent to nearly $50 billion today. Building the orbiters alone cost billions, and even the supposedly reusable boosters cost hundreds of millions to construct. The first shuttle, Columbia, was built in Palmdale, California, beginning in 1975. Rockwell International turned the desert town into a hub of aerospace engineering. When completed, the shuttle was covered in 32,000 heat-resistant tiles, each one unique and hand-fitted to survive temperatures up to 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It was the heaviest of all the orbiters, 2,200 pounds more than Challenger, and parts of it were made from classified materials. Before NASA could fly Columbia into space, they needed to prove the shuttle could glide and land safely. In 1977, they tested the prototype Enterprise, dropping it from the back of a Boeing 747. During the final test, it hit the runway hard, bouncing and revealing dangerous wing vibrations. Engineers fixed those flaws and moved forward. NASA expected the shuttles to fly constantly, up to 60 times a year, but they never reached even half that. By 1985, only 9 launches took place, and maintenance demands, aging parts, and rush schedules created growing risks. Columbia's first flight on April 12, 1981, seemed a success until engineers inspected it after landing. 16 heat tiles were gone, and 148 were damaged. One hole was 8 inches wide. Later studies showed the chance of a fatal accident on that mission had been 1 in 9. NASA didn't slow down. In January 1986, the shuttle Challenger exploded 73 seconds after liftoff, killing its crew of 7. A rubber O-ring in the right booster failed in cold weather, tearing the shuttle apart. The program halted for almost 3 years while NASA redesigned the boosters. After Challenger, NASA promised reform, but its safety culture only partially changed. Foam insulation from the external tank kept breaking loose, striking the shuttle during launches. Engineers came to treat these strikes as routine, even budgeting for tile replacements after every mission. By the late 1990s, the shuttles were aging badly. Columbia, the oldest, relied on 1970s technology. Wires were brittle, metal frames were fatigued, and replacement parts were scarce. NASA's shuttle budget had dropped by 40%, while more funding was sent to the International Space Station. They postponed $1.7 billion worth of safety upgrades and cut staff by nearly half. Between 1995 and 1999, the shuttle workforce fell from 3,000 to 1,800 full-time employees, many of them older veterans nearing retirement. Younger engineers were not joining, and vital expertise was being lost. Stress and exhaustion spread through the ranks. Despite repeated warnings from Congress and NASA's own safety advisors, little changed. In July 2002, the budget was cut again. Commander Rick Husband, a 45-year-old Air Force pilot from Texas, led Columbia's final mission in January 2003. His crew included pilot William McCool, payload commander Michael Anderson, mission specialist Kalpana Chawla, David Brown and Laurel Clark, and Israeli astronaut Ilan Ramon. The mission carried out over 80 experiments on subjects ranging from atmospheric dust to human bone loss in zero gravity. On January 16, 2003, Columbia lifted off at 10:39 a.m. 81 seconds into flight. A briefcase-sized piece of foam broke off from the external tank and struck the shuttle's left wing near its leading edge. The foam weighed less than 2 pounds but hit at 500 miles per hour. It likely punched a hole about 16 inches wide in one of the reinforced carbon panels that protected the wing from re-entry heat. NASA saw the video and reviewed it but decided it posed no serious threat. Engineers begged for satellite images, but their request was canceled within 90 minutes. The crew was never told. For the next 16 days, the astronauts worked in orbit unaware of the damage. On January 27, Boeing presented a report to NASA downplaying the risk. Though buried in the fine print, it noted the foam strike was 640 times larger than anything tested before. That warning was overlooked. A rescue mission could have been launched using Shuttle Atlantis, which was nearly ready. If preparations had begun on Flight Day 4, Atlantis could have reached Columbia by February 10, just before life support supplies ran out. But NASA never pursued the idea. On February 1, 2003 at 8:44 a.m., Columbia began its descent. From the ground, everything looked normal. For minutes later, sensors in the left wing began showing abnormal strain. By 8:53, pieces were breaking off over California. At 8:59, superheated gases, hotter than 2,400 degrees Fahrenheit, entered the wing through the hole caused by the foam strike. The aluminum structure melted, wires failed, and the wing tore away. The shuttle lost control and disintegrated at 9:18 a.m. over Texas. People across the region saw bright trails of debris streaking across the sky and heard powerful sonic booms. More than 85,000 pounds of debris were recovered across 2,000 square miles of Texas and Louisiana. Inside the cockpit, the crew survived for only a few moments after the breakup. Commander Husband's final words were "Roger, before communication stopped. Data showed the cabin remained intact for about 40 seconds longer, giving the astronauts no time to react. The sudden loss of pressure caused instant unconsciousness. Without sealed helmets or gloves, their bodies could not withstand the vacuum. The cabin then broke apart under forces up to 18 times gravity. NASA's recovery operation became the largest in U.S.